As I say, live rolling coverage not only from our studios here in Randburg, but also from the Results Operations Centre in Midrand, Gallagher Estate. We're going to take you live now to Masa Kekana. Great to see you there, Masa. And of course, you've got lots of analysis, plenty of people from different political parties who will no doubt want to come and have that last push on election day.
Absolutely, Michelle. Good afternoon to you and our viewers. And I've got a guest with me right now after that IEC all-important briefing that we had earlier. I have the ANC's Nomvula Mokonyane. Ms. Mokonyane, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you very much.
Happy Election Day.
Happy Election Day.
Have you voted?
I voted on the first day of special votes.
How are you feeling after hearing that report that we heard from the IEC today to say, look, everything went smoothly, and in fact, there have been some instances, but for the most part, it's a smooth election day, but in fact also that people went to the voting stations as early as 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, knowing that it'll open at 7, just to show how eager South Africans are to get out there and cast their ballots.
It's actually quite humbling. It demonstrates also that a lot of work has been done on the ground to activate the voters. Both those that voted as far back as 1994 and the first-time voters. The queues are actually demonstrating the demographics of our country and the different age cohorts. And of importance is that with all other glitches that might have happened in the process, over 96% of what is supposed to be functional is actually functional. And therefore South Africans have to come out earlier. Let's make sure that the long queues are a demonstration of the enthusiasm. Where there are problems, the IC has already dealt with them. If you have a challenge of a VMD in your VD, you can still use the voters' roll. If you do not appear in the voters' roll of where you are, check again using the app of the IEC as to whether you are valid to be in the voting station that you are in. If you had applied to be a special voter and you didn't use those 2 days, you are still eligible. For us as the ANC, we're quite excited because we have a footprint in the entire 23,000 voting districts, because our commitment once more is to work together with the people of South Africa to accelerate change for many other South Africans who are as yet to benefit.
And when we were speaking about this IEC briefing that we had, about the few glitches that were there, in some communities there were protests where they were prohibiting the IEC officials from even opening up. And we heard Mr. Shiburi saying that, look, they did not open, not because they didn't have the voting material, but because some community members prevented that. What would be your message for those community members who may feel disgruntled and are using today as a day to protest?
It is precisely because of what is happening here today that the ANC calls on South African voters to work together with the ANC to do more, so that then through our manifesto we are able to accelerate change that we have seen taking place in many other communities that have benefited, and resolve the outstanding challenges such as the ones that the voters are protesting against. Let your voice be heard by participating in voting and actually ensuring that together we can do more.
What do you think about, Gauteng? This is the bulk of where the registered voters are. You were the previous premier of this province as well. Our premier candidate is our current premier from the ANC, Panyaza Lisufi. Do you think, as the ANC in Gauteng, you've done enough to garner that support?
We have turned the tide in Gauteng. We have turned the tide because what happened in the previous elections had to do with some of the challenges that our abled ANC-led government has been able to deal with. The issues that had to do not with load shedding, but blackouts in our communities where transformers have been put in place. There's been a massive job creation program, not only job opportunities, but job creation programs that have been done, as well as reminding South Africans that staying away from voting, because that's what happened in the previous. Staying away from voting and saying, I support the ANC, but I won't come out, is actually detrimental to the overwhelming support that we expect from you. And hence we are quite excited that in our strong base, the queues are long. We have had a huge turnout in terms of the special votes that we had also mobilized. And as we speak now, we have 7 zones in Johannesburg where the queues are just long, and we're engaging with the IC, particularly in our African populated areas where you have surnames of the M's and the N's that are many, that the voters' roll has to be dissected and ensure that you use different queues to make sure, therefore, that the queues do not become longer and longer and longer, given the weather, as well as that we are slowly getting into the winter period where it gets darker earlier. Let's all go out and vote now, whilst it is still easy to move in, and where we now have answers to all the glitches that were there.
And speaking of the warm day we're having, earlier we saw your ANC president, Cyril Ramaphosa. He was in Soweto and Shawela casting his vote, and he was saying to members of the community and the media outside to say, look, it's a beautiful warm day. You know, who would have thought that we're just a few days away from June? Technically speaking, it should be like deep cold winter by now. But it's just testament as well to also the mood in the country. It's vibrant, it's warm, it's sunny. Listening to media, also watching on social media, while people are waiting in queues for long periods of time, which they really shouldn't be. But once they come out of there, the jubilation of being able to vote as well. Are you feeling some sort of a remnant of the 1994 long queues and jubilation as well? Election
days have always been like celebratory days in South Africa. Election days have always been also a demonstration of a nation that is under construction. You see the demographics, the non-racialism, especially in the areas that historically were affluent. And here today, remember also, we're celebrating 30 years of our democracy. And as we are saying, we have done a lot, and a lot still needs to be done. And hence we have to work together with our own South Africans by voting for the African National Congress so that we can accelerate change, learning from what we have done and also overcoming the challenges that we have gone through together. We believe that we are in a better place.
These protests that are happening in certain communities as well, I mean, that when you put that together with some polls, for instance, the Ipsos poll as well, that show that there might be a decline in your party support and your party voter. What do you make of that as well? Do you think you'll be able to have a majority nationally and in this province of Gauteng?
Actually, we appreciate the polls, and we work on the basis of the polls and be able to make interventions. We've done those interventions because we also understood what influenced those polls. Where we are comfortable with the work that we have done, and we are also quite certain that South Africans have learned in terms of voter turnout, because that is what has previously affected the ANC. It was voter turnout, and as well as the measure that is based on the last local government elections. We're quite determined the ANC will come out victorious, because together with the people of South Africa, we embrace the fact that a lot has been done, and hence we have to accelerate change at a faster pace so that then all of us can overcome the challenges of poverty, of inequality, of unemployment, of crime, and all other forms of discrimination. What needs to happen now is for all of us to embrace the efforts that have been put in place by the IEC, and all political parties adhere to the rules and ensure that the voter is warmly welcomed into the voting station, and where there are issues, they are actually advised accordingly. And that's the message we're giving to our party agents and volunteers across the length and breadth of our country.
Ms. Mokonyane, you had your boots on the ground. You were campaigning for your party. What were people saying to you on the ground when they would interact with you?
You know, we went first to go and account on the 2019-2024 manifesto. The first time we've done that, precisely because we wanted to appreciate the work that has been done over the past 30 years. So we had a 30-year review, we had a 5-year review, and we also looked at the organizational renewal program that we have put in place as the African National Congress. And hence now, with the 2024 manifesto, we have these 6 priorities that demonstrate an organization that is on a renewal path, where voters are saying, remain in contact with us. Self-correct and renew yourself within the organization. Deal with issues of jobs. Remember, our first priority is around inclusive growth. It's about skilling young people. It's about protecting the existing industries and creating new industries. It is about fighting crime and corruption, but most importantly is to work together with the people of South Africa to accelerate change.
Acceleration of change is exactly what we need. Mr. Mokonyane, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon on Newzroom Afrika, and all the best to you for these upcoming elections.
Thank you.
That, of course, is NEC member Nomvula Mokonyane, who is joining us live from the Results Operating Centre here at Gallagher Estate.